What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today is June the 26th. I want to give you a quick pre-market update, go over some of the hot movers and what big money is really doing today. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data points, we did have GDP and also initial jobless claims coming out. Somewhat mixed data. So initial jobless claims came in at 236, forecast of 247. GDP was a little bit lower, but that was somewhat anticipated, caused a little bit of a dip, as you can kind of see, but that did shortly recover. So I think today, or just right now going forward, any and all data points are going to be really translated to what does this mean for rate cuts. So again, having somewhat mixed feelings on the GDP. For face value, that does somewhat justify future rate cuts. So I think that's what the market is taking that as. Currently though, the futures are looking pretty a-okay. So Dow is up 0.32, S&P up 0.43, NASDAQ up 0.47. We do have a couple Fed speakers for the rest of the week. That's been somewhat the case almost every single day though. So that could cause some volatility depending on what is stated, but it looks as though the market really is ready to continue to move higher. And as I've mentioned, based on a lot of on a technical standpoint for the indexes, it does signal that we are ready for the next leg up. Only thing I do want to bring up as more of a warning, FYI, of course, I'm not a financial advisor, you do whatever the hell that floats your boat, but a lot of people are getting rather concerned over this right here. So for those of you that were trading in 2021, you know any and everything was ultimately hitting new highs, was going up like crazy. A lot of people are comparing then to now. And for instance, this right here looks as though there is going to be a Pudgy Penguins NFT ETF. So as crazy as that sounds, a lot of people are correlating this with us being at a peak. So ultimately insinuating that we might be kind of due for a significant pullback, that greed is just excessive. So yeah, what's your general thoughts on that in the comments below? But getting right to it, SoFi is up 0.81%. They were on CNBC yesterday. Jim Cramer, nothing crazy was stated, but good to see at least Anthony going out there and so forth. But right now it is just piggybacking off the broader market as well as its relatively bullish technicals. 13.52% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 147 million shares overall are being shorted. I'm sure some of you might be wondering why that did recently jump up, and that is because the exchanges did report the true amount of shares. So ultimately between May the 29th and June the 12th, there was roughly around 4 million shares shorted, more than what we previously knew about. So that's why it did unfortunately jump up a little bit. So I'll kind of dive deep into this a little bit more once I go over in my dedicated SoFi video. But as far as some points to watch for today, 1621, it is right now between this R3 and this R2. GDP was going to be that kind of kryptonite for the market today, but luckily enough, it's being portrayed as relatively optimistic. So 1589 is going to be a support level. Just watch for that. And then 1643 is going to be the next strong target / resistance, which if the momentum does continue, I can realistically see that being touched. Aside from that, NIO, no news, no SEC filings or anything like that, although it is getting a abnormal amount of volume. It does appear to be flat right now. Like I said, no news or anything like that. Shorts did return a significant amount, again, because of that recent update. So 13.25% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 204 million shares. So ultimately, between May the 29th and June the 14th, shorts did return roughly around 7-8 million shares, more than what we thought. So again, during that time frame, NIO's stock price kind of sucked, if I'm going to be fully honest. So when it comes down to it, during that kind of pullback, shorts were actually returning. So insinuating big money was somewhat selling, in my opinion. But aside from that, with at 348, it is slightly above this pivot point. So 347 is going to be that key pivot. Just definitely watch for that today. 354 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. And then 339 is going to be the next strong support. Moving on, ticker is a BTBT. So Bit Digital. It is down 15% because of them giving the price of their recent issuance, and that is at $2 each. So ultimately, that's kind of what the market does, is that once a issuance and a price is kind of disclosed, that's what the market sees the company valuing or the fair value ultimately. So this is why you're seeing it gravitate towards that $2 mark. But keep in mind, the market cap is 489 million and the issuance was just for 75 million. So I do feel like there will be a nice recovery today, probably to that 210 in my opinion. But aside from that, it is somewhat heavily shorted. So 13.15% of the free float is being shorted. So I'm sure they'll have some influence in what happens today. But aside from that though, with it at 199, it is trading right now between this S1 and S2. 188 will be a strong support, 204 followed by 232. So I feel like there will be a recovery to kind of between this pivot and this S1, most likely. Like I said, realistically, I would put it at like that 210 to maybe 215 at being the fair value. That's factoring in that 75 million at that $2 price, as well kind of digesting their recent market cap. So that's just my opinion. Who knows? Maybe this is kind of the kryptonite and will cause it to go down to $1.60. Anything is possible in the market, of course. Moving on, tickers ALT, it is down 60%, which is rather unfortunate because it was gaining a lot of good momentum. But any biotech or anything like that giving bad results, you're going to have this level of pullback. So it's kind of always a high risk, high return type of play. So it is unfortunately hitting bad news, so that's why it's going down. Also heavily shorted, so anticipate them to be fairly active today, but 30.9% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 24.85 million shares, with it right now at 306. It is below all the key FIV levels, so of course just kind of tread cautiously, do your own due diligence. And then last but not least is ticker MU. They did have their earnings, they are up 1.61%, but you did see it hit a high after hours yesterday, I believe, of like a 139 or 138 or somewhere around there, and it did pull back, and that's because of the risks. So management unfortunately didn't give that warm fuzzy feeling associated to tariffs, so that was one thing. And then they did mention also this right here, I kind of highlighted it. So there's a lot of challenges that they seem to be kind of dealing with, and so it also remains less healthy than DRAM, so that's NAND. So yeah, that's in my opinion some of the attributing factors why it did go down so much. But then again, anything is possible. Once the market does open, potentially big money will just be playing call options and just allow it to freely go up. But 2.56% of the free floats being shorted, works to be 28.47 million shares. So far pre-market, it does appear that shorts are returning 1.28 million shares. With it at 128, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 108 is going to be a strong support. 138 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. And it kind of bounced off of that general area of sorts. So of course, don't really anticipate any crazy moves or anything. Quickly moving over to the 4 hour, just so you're aware. So 125 potentially could be a strong support, and then that 128, which is where it's at, is going to be that key pivot. So let me know your thoughts on these stocks. What stocks are you buying or watching today? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you are looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which that I post on there are absolute bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.